She looks like she's here to rob the place, not open an account. Get her out before someone thinks we serve people like that." Those were the first words branch manager Stephen Coleman barked across the lobby of Apex Trust Bank when he saw the woman standing quietly by the information kiosk, unaware that she wasn't a threat, or a fraud, or a nuisance. She was Vanessa Harper, the woman who built Apex Financial Group from the ground up, the one who signed his paychecks. And in just 15 minutes, she'd shut the entire branch down. But before we get into that story, where are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you believe in dignity, fairness, and real accountability, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Now, let's walk into the lobby of 1200 Brickell Avenue in Miami, where quiet disrespect was about to explode into corporate reckoning. It started subtly. A woman in her early 40s entered the bank, dressed in a soft gray hoodie, clean dark jeans, and understated sneakers. Her natural curls were pulled back into a low bun. She carried no designer handbag, wore no diamonds, and didn't demand attention. But she wasn't there to be noticed. She was there to observe. For the past 2 months, Vanessa Harper had received complaints, some anonymous, some detailed, about one of her newest branches, reports of staff brushing off clients who didn't look the part, especially Black and Latino visitors, allegations that white customers in suits were greeted with smiles, while others were told to wait or flat out ignored. Vanessa didn't want to send an audit team. She didn't want a corporate memo. She wanted the truth. So she came herself. No entourage, no warning, just one woman walking into her own bank, undercover, with a purpose. She stepped up to the front desk where a young trainee teller, Maya Patel, barely 21 and fresh out of college, greeted her with a warm smile. "Good afternoon. Ma'am, how can I help you today?" Maya's voice was calm. "Respectful," Vanessa replied. "Hi, I'd like to ask about opening a premium account." Maya started to explain the tier levels. Basic checking, standard savings, and then the premium tier, which required a minimum balance of $25,000. Vanessa nodded and was about to ask a follow-up when another voice cut in, sharp and condescending. "She's wasting your time." Stephen Coleman had emerged from his glass office like a man storming the stage. He looked Vanessa up and down with an expression that could curdle milk. "That's not a serious inquiry," he added, waving his hand dismissively. "You can't afford a premium account." Maya hesitated, confused. "She just asked." "She's not here to bank." Stephen snapped. "She's here to make trouble. You'll learn that soon enough." Vanessa stayed calm. "I'm serious about opening an account. I meet the minimum, and I'd like to understand your options." Stephen scoffed. "Lady, this isn't a shelter. You can't just wander in and demand top-tier service." Across the lobby, 2 other tellers, Rachel Kim and Brian Walsh, were watching with folded arms and smug expressions. Rachel, 28, whispered loud enough to be heard. "She looks like she walked in off the street." Brian, 33, added, "Or out of a bus station." The words hung in the air like poison. Vanessa's voice didn't waver. "I'd like to speak to someone about the premium account." Rachel tilted her head mockingly. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" Then she turned her back. That's when the security guard stepped forward. Derek Vaughn, 38, 6'2", broad shoulders, and a scowl carved deep into his face. "Ma'am," he said with a sarcastic drawl, "if you're not here on legitimate business, I'll have to ask you to leave. This is a financial institution." Vanessa stared at him. "I just said I want to open a premium account." "Right," he said, arms crossed, "and I'm the Queen of England." Laughter came from Brian's station. The branch had gone quiet, but not empty. Several clients in suits were sitting in leather chairs. Among them was a man named Jacob Reed, a white financial analyst, 29 years old, visiting from out of state. He'd been watching the exchange closely, his expression darkening by the second. Slowly, he pulled out his phone. No hashtags, no commentary. Just a live stream to his followers on X with the caption, "Racism at Apex Trust Bank, Miami," a few feet away. A woman in a sharp cream-colored pantsuit, Sophia Bennett, a regular VIP, was offered espresso and ushered into a private room. At the same time, James Carter, a white man in a pinstripe suit, was being personally walked through the wire transfer process by Brian. Meanwhile, Vanessa, who controlled more assets than everyone in that lobby combined, was being treated like a trespasser. Maya, standing to the side, looked torn. She stepped forward again. "Mr. Coleman, maybe we could just give her the information." Stephen cut her off. "She's new," he muttered to the other staff. "Doesn't know how to spot a vagrant yet." Maya's face flushed with shock. Vanessa took a breath. Calm, deep, steady. "I'm asking for a simple brochure on premium accounts. I believe I qualify." Derek stepped in again, this time more aggressive. "Ma'am, you either leave or I'll escort you out. We have zero tolerance for loitering. You've been warned." At that moment, Vanessa reached into her bag and calmly pulled out a sleek black card holder. Inside was a corporate ID. She held it up. "Vanessa Harper, CEO of Apex Financial Group." Rachel let out a sarcastic laugh. "That's cute," she said, and without blinking, took the ID and tossed it onto the counter. "Fake," she said flatly. "People try that scam all the time." The lobby went silent. Jacob's live stream was still rolling. Maya gasped. One of the seated customers stood halfway up. Vanessa stared down at her ID, then at Stephen. "You just made a very big mistake," she said, her voice steady. Stephen shrugged. "What I see is someone playing dress-up. We don't serve fantasies here." Brian smirked. "She's ruining Apex, please. She's a fraud," Derek echoed, folding his arms tighter. That was the moment the air shifted. Not with shouting, not with violence, but with stillness, heavy, loaded, unrelenting. A few customers began to murmur. One whispered, "That's her. That really is her," another said. "I've seen her speak on CNBC, but the staff didn't notice, or they chose not to." Vanessa glanced at her phone. A single message blinked on her screen. It was from Elena Ortiz, her executive assistant. "Internal system standing by." Vanessa's thumb hovered over the screen. Then she pressed send. The fire hadn't started yet, but it would. In less than 15 minutes, no one in that lobby would still be employed. Not Stephen, not Rachel, not Brian, not Derek, and certainly not the version of Apex Trust Bank they thought they controlled. The second Vanessa Harper's internal command went through, the wheels of accountability began turning behind the scenes. But inside the Apex Trust Bank lobby, the situation only escalated. The staff still didn't believe her. They didn't even pause. Instead, Brian Walsh leaned back in his chair with a smirk and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "If she's the CEO, then I'm Elon Musk." Rachel Kim chuckled from behind her window and pointed toward the entrance. "Sweetheart," she said mockingly, "we don't open fantasy accounts. You can take your fake ID and little folder and head back to wherever you came from," Brian added. $250 minimum. You think she has $25,000. She can't even afford the clothes we wear to work." Stephen Coleman, still standing with arms crossed, nodded in agreement and then turned his attention toward the glass conference room, where white VIP customers Sophia Bennett and James Carter were already receiving concierge-level service. "This," he muttered under his breath, "is what real banking looks like." Vanessa didn't respond. She didn't need to. Not yet. Her eyes were on the discarded ID card, now sitting face up on the counter. She reached forward, retrieved it, and calmly placed it back into her holder. Derek Vaughn, the security guard, took a step closer, hand resting on his belt as if she were about to cause a disturbance. "Last warning," he barked. "Either you move now or I move you." The words echoed louder than he expected, catching the attention of two elderly clients sitting nearby. One of them, a white woman in her 70s wearing a navy pantsuit, looked up from her tablet and said aloud, "That's no way to speak to a woman asking for service." Derek turned, annoyed. "This doesn't concern you, ma'am." But it did, because Jacob Reed's live stream had now surpassed 4,000 viewers on Reddit, with comments piling up. Some accused the bank of racial profiling, others called it disgraceful. Still more were identifying Vanessa by name, linking to past Forbes features and keynote speeches. Yet inside the branch, Stephen barked again. "Someone call security backup. She's refusing to leave." Maya Patel, still seated at her teller station, hands trembling slightly, leaned into her microphone and said, "Sir, I really think we should take this seriously." Stephen turned to her sharply. "You're here to learn banking, not argue with your boss." "But she's not causing trouble," Maya said firmly. "She asked a question, and you've humiliated her." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Maya, stay in your lane." "No," Maya replied, rising to her feet. "I've seen this before. This isn't about a premium account. This is about how she looks." Vanessa turned toward Maya. Offering a faint nod, Maya added, her voice steady. "I've read the internal reports. I know the complaints that came in last month, and this matches them." Stephen's eyes narrowed. "You're talking out of turn." Maya didn't flinch. "Maybe someone needs to—" Jacob's voice rang out from the waiting area. "It's live, and it's spreading. People are watching this in real time." Brian turned in disbelief. "You're filming?" Jacob nodded. "And so is that guy by the ATM, and that woman near the brochures. It's not just me anymore." Derek stepped forward, furious now. "Turn that off or I'll confiscate it," Jacob replied coolly. "You try, and I'll sue." Another voice, this time from an older black gentleman standing by the coffee station, spoke up. "I've banked here 10 years. Never seen anyone treated like this." Sophia Bennett, who had just signed her paperwork in the private room, glanced up through the glass and caught a glimpse of Vanessa's face. Her brow furrowed. "That woman," she said quietly to James Carter. "I've seen her before, on Bloomberg. I think—" James turned and followed her gaze. "Wait," he said. "That's Vanessa Harper. She owns Apex." Sophia's eyes widened. "We need to say something." Inside the main lobby, Rachel picked up a shredder bin and dropped the crumpled account form Maya had handed her earlier. Vanessa's original inquiry paperwork. Trash, she declared. Vanessa watched it go in. Quietly. She stepped closer to the front desk and said, "You've just destroyed a federal document connected to a legitimate financial request." Rachel shrugged. "I didn't see a legitimate request." Maya, trembling now, reached down and retrieved the half-crumpled form before it fell deeper into the bin. She straightened it, smoothed the folds, and placed it back on the counter. "It wasn't trash," she said, her voice rising. "She asked to open an account. You refused." Stephen pointed at Maya, voice sharp. "You're 1 week from probation. Don't ruin your future." But Maya didn't back down. "I'd rather ruin my future than stay quiet about what you're doing." That line hung in the air, and for the first time, Stephen hesitated. A small flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Vanessa broke the silence. "I built Apex to serve everyone, not just the ones who walk in with gold watches and leather briefcases. If you think I don't belong here because of my hoodie, then maybe this branch doesn't belong in my company." Derek scoffed. "Is that a threat?" Vanessa answered. "It's a fact." Rachel laughed bitterly. "Lady, you are not in charge of anything. Vanessa glanced down at her phone again. A quiet vibration. A single text from Elena internal log activated. All actions recorded. All personnel status ready for override. Vanessa didn't smile. She simply looked up and said, "Let me ask you one more time. Will someone walk me through the process of opening a premium account? Or do I need to escalate this?" Brian folded his arms. "You have no money. You're playing dress-up in our lobby, wasting our time. Go back to wherever you came from." The elderly customer near the front entrance stood up. "Enough." Her voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. "This is disgraceful. I don't care who she is. No one deserves this." Jacob turned to her. "She is the CEO. They just don't believe her." Another customer stood. "You're really about to lose your jobs over this." A ripple spread through the room. Stephen's face paled slightly, but he covered it with a forced laugh. "Oh, come on. You people believe anything you read on the internet." Maya stepped in again. "Then explain this," she said, holding up her tablet, where the Apex employee directory now clearly listed Vanessa Harper as CEO and founder. Stephen looked, blinked, and said nothing. "You've ignored complaints about bias before." Maya continued. "I know you did. I saw the emails. You swept them under the rug." Rachel's voice cracked. "Maya, shut up." But the damage was done. Customers started murmuring. A man near the teller windows picked up his phone and began typing. Another whispered, "She really is the CEO." And still, Vanessa remained calm, her expression unreadable. Then, quietly, she looked up at Stephen and said, "Your time here is running out," Brian snapped. "You're a fraud," Vanessa replied. "You'll regret those words." And in that moment, as Jacob's second video hit the front page of Reddit, the atmosphere in the branch shifted from smug denial to growing dread. They didn't know it yet, but Maya's quiet courage and Vanessa's silent command had just changed the future of Apex Trust and exposed the truth behind the polished counters and smiling brochures. And for Stephen, Rachel, Brian, and Derek, the clock was officially ticking. "I'm Vanessa Harper, CEO of Apex Financial Group." Her words didn't echo. They cut clean through the lobby, steady and unshaken, spoken with the calm authority of someone who didn't need to prove anything. But Stephen Coleman didn't flinch. He scoffed, glanced at her hoodie again, and laughed openly. You're the CEO." He turned to Rachel and Brian with a mocking grin. The woman dressed like she's about to sleep on a park bench. "Please." Rachel, arms crossed, picked up her intercom and pressed the call button. "Attention all staff. We have an individual in the lobby impersonating an executive. Security is responding." Vanessa stood still, her face expressionless, as Derek Vaughn, now fully emboldened, stepped in with his hand near his radio. "Ma'am, this is your final chance to leave peacefully. You've been warned. We're not playing games." Vanessa didn't blink, and I'm not asking again. Across the room, Maya Patel stood like a stone wall between her and the counter. "She's not lying," Maya said, her voice louder than before. "She is who she says she is. You all just refuse to see it." Brian rolled his eyes and muttered under his breath. Interns think they know everything, but Jacob Reed had already pulled up Vanessa's LinkedIn on his phone. He turned the screen around. She's listed here. Founder, CEO, 20 years in finance, photos, awards. This woman owns Apex. Customers now stood in clusters, murmuring and pointing. One man whispered, "I saw her on CNBC." Another added, "She was on that Fortune 50 list last year." Derek ignored them all and stepped closer, barking, "We'll let the police sort this out." That threat landed like a hammer. Vanessa's voice rose slightly. "Threatening law enforcement against your employer. That's bold." But it was Stephen who doubled down, leaning in with a low snarl. "You're not our employer. You're a liar. And you'll be removed in handcuffs if you don't walk out right now." At that moment, something shifted in the room, not in Vanessa's posture, but in everyone else's. Sophia Bennett, having watched quietly from the conference room, stepped out into the main lobby. "Excuse me," she said calmly, addressing Stephen. "I just confirmed her identity. That's Vanessa Harper." Stephen turned to her with visible irritation. "Ma'am, please stay out of this." But Sophia raised her voice. "No, I won't. I've seen her speak at a summit last spring. She's on the board of the National Banking Consortium. She's not pretending. She's the real thing." Her words sent a ripple through the room. James Carter joined her. "She owns the bank. You're about to get yourselves fired on camera." Vanessa, still calm, replied quietly, "I already made the call." Stephen's expression faltered. "What call, Jacob?" Now speaking louder, answered before Vanessa did. "She called her office 10 minutes ago. Said the internal system was activated." "You really think she'd bluff in front of a dozen witnesses?" Rachel snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about." But Maya stepped forward. "Yes, he does. And you all know what's been going on here." Then she turned to Vanessa and said, "Tell them." Vanessa nodded once and took a slow step forward. "For months, we've received complaints about this branch. Clients turned away, applications lost, staff choosing who gets respect and who gets ridiculed based on their clothes, their accent, their skin. I didn't come here to give a speech. I came to see it with my own eyes. And I've seen enough." Stephen shook his head, still trying to recover control. "You don't understand how we operate. We follow procedures. We do things by the book." Vanessa's gaze sharpened. "You shredded my ID. You called me a fraud. You attempted to have me physically removed. That's not procedure. That's personal bias." Rachel jumped in again, trying to regain ground. "Anyone could fake credentials. You came in dressed like what Vanessa asked, locking eyes with her, like someone who didn't deserve to be taken seriously." The room went dead quiet. Then, out of nowhere, another voice emerged. A middle-aged black woman near the exit, who'd been watching everything, finally spoke. "This happened to me here 3 weeks ago. They told me I didn't meet the minimum before even asking for my name." Maya turned to her. "Did you file a complaint?" The woman nodded. "Never heard back." Jacob looked around the room. "How many others?" Another woman raised her hand. Then a young Latino man. Then an elderly Haitian gentleman with a cane. The truth began unraveling in real time. Derek looked shaken. You can't believe all these stories. But his voice lacked conviction now. Stephen tried one last tactic. "You're manipulating people. This is a setup." Vanessa calmly replied. "Is that what you told HR last spring? When a black woman complained about being told to come back in heels if she wanted executive attention, that hit hard?" Stephen's mouth opened, then closed again. Maya turned, her face pale. That complaint was buried. Vanessa nodded. "I know. I read it, along with the 10 others tied to this branch." Derek finally lowered his radio. Brian looked like he'd seen a ghost. Rachel went silent. The customers had formed a physical barrier between Vanessa and the staff, standing in a quiet circle of protection, as if daring anyone to try removing her now. Jacob held his phone high and said clearly, "This footage is already being shared. Everyone's going to know what happened here." Stephen looked around the room, realizing the walls were closing in. "You don't understand. We had no idea who she was. That's the point," Sophia replied. "You treated her like this because you didn't think she was somebody," James added. "And now we all see how you treat the people you think are nobody." Vanessa exhaled slowly. She turned to Maya. "Thank you for speaking up." Maya nodded. "You shouldn't have had to come here to prove your worth. No one should. Vanessa said. Then she looked at Stephen, Rachel, Brian, and Derek. You don't get to hide behind procedure anymore. This ends today. The staff looked stunned, but the damage was already done. The live streams, the witnesses, the rising voices from customers who had long remained silent. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. And in just a few minutes, the real consequences would begin. Because behind the calm in Vanessa Harper's voice, behind her still posture and folded hands, the full weight of her power as CEO was already in motion, and every person who dismissed her was about to face the cost of their assumptions. The moment Derek Vaughn reached out and grabbed Vanessa Harper's forearm, the room turned electric. Customers rose from their seats as if pulled by one shared instinct. Enough was enough. "Let her go!" someone shouted. Derek didn't listen. "You're not welcome here, ma'am," he growled, gripping tighter. But before he could pull her toward the exit, 3 customers stepped between them, a man in a suit, a young mother with a stroller, and an older gentleman linked arms and formed a wall. "She said she's the CEO." The man snapped. "You don't get to put your hands on her." Derek's expression flickered with confusion, but his grip stayed firm. That was the moment Maya Patel pushed her chair back and stepped fully into the lobby. "Don't touch her again," she said loudly. Her voice cracked slightly, but her spine stayed straight. "You lay one more hand on her and I'm reporting you to HR and the Miami Police Department in front of every witness in this room." Stephen Coleman burst from behind the counter, face flushed. "Enough, everyone, back to your posts. This is a bank, not a protest." He looked at Maya. You're fired." Maya didn't move. "You don't have that authority anymore," she replied evenly. "She does." She pointed at Vanessa, who now stood calmly in the middle of a circle of customers, her arm free, her expression unreadable. Stephen scoffed. "This is chaos. We have protocol. This isn't how we handle complaints." Jacob Reed raised his phone higher. "No, this is exactly how complaints get handled when no one listens for months." His live stream was still rolling, and the viewership had tripled. "Tell them." "Maya," he said. "Tell them what you told me 5 minutes ago." Maya nodded slowly, then addressed the room. "A month ago, during my onboarding, we had a training session. Part of the instruction from Mr. Coleman was to prioritize high-value clients who look the part. Those were his exact words," he said, and I quote, "If someone walks in dressed like they just left court, give them an application and send them packing. Don't waste your time." The room went dead silent. Rachel's mouth fell open. Brian looked down at his shoes. Derek looked from side to side, as if searching for a way out. Stephen turned bright red. "That's a lie," he shouted. "You're making that up to save yourself." Maya stood taller. "Then explain why 5 of us trainees signed an HR memo about it, and only I'm still employed." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Where are the other 4 now transferred or pushed out?" Maya replied, 2 lasted less than 3 weeks. Sophia Bennett's voice rose from behind the circle of customers. "And this is the place I've been trusting with my accounts for 2 years, James Carter added. "You've been selecting your clients based on wardrobe and skin tone. That's not banking. That's discrimination." Derek, still frozen, said nothing. Vanessa slowly walked toward the center of the room. "Is that true?" "Stephen, you gave that directive?" He stammered. "We use judgment. It's just vetting. Just a way to filter the frauds." "Based on clothes," Vanessa asked. "Based on what you think a real client looks like." She gestured to herself. "Because I walked in wearing a hoodie. I wasn't real to you." "You didn't look the part," Stephen muttered. "That's your excuse," she asked quietly. "I didn't look the part." Jacob stepped forward now. "Everyone in this room saw it. Everyone watching online saw it. And you can't spin your way out of it anymore," Maya continued, her voice calm but resolute. "There were multiple complaints sent to corporate. I know. I saw one before it was archived. I've seen Rachel shred at least 2 others this week. Rachel's head snapped up. That's not true. It is, said a second voice, this time from a middle-aged teller who had been silent until now. She stepped forward, face pale. I saw it too. Last Tuesday, a woman came in with a complaint form. Rachel took it straight to the back office. It was never filed. Vanessa turned to her. "What's your name, Nina?" She said, "I've worked here 9 years." "Why didn't you say something?" Vanessa asked. Nina hesitated. Fear. People here know who has power, or who they thought did. That landed hard. The illusion of power in that branch had just shattered. "You know what I think," Vanessa said quietly. "I think all of this, every snide comment, every form discarded, every client insulted, it was all built on arrogance, the kind that assumes no one will ever hold you accountable." She looked at Stephen. "And you were wrong." Stephen finally raised his voice, but it was thin now. "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've run this branch since it opened. I know how to protect it." Vanessa didn't even blink. "You didn't protect it. You infected it." Then she turned toward the gathered customers. "Everyone here today deserves better, and they're going to get it. Starting now." The room fell into a deep hush. Customers exchanged glances. Several of them nodded. Someone clapped once, then a second joined. Slowly. The sound grew. A soft, swelling affirmation. Not celebration. Not chaos. Just a quiet, resolute show of support. Derek finally took a step back, his hands no longer hovering over his belt. He looked at Stephen, waiting for direction, but Stephen had nothing left to give. Jacob read another message on his phone. "News outlets are picking this up. The video just made the front page." Vanessa checked her phone. A message from Elena Ortiz appeared, regional director en route. ETA, 3 mins. System override complete. Legal advised. Vanessa looked up. "I'm done talking. Next comes action." Her voice was steady, unwavering. "This branch is finished. Every person who played a part in this. Your time is up." Maya stood beside her now, hands folded, eyes forward. Nina stepped behind them. Even Sophia and James crossed the room to stand near the center. The staff, once arrogant and untouchable, now looked like shadows, reduced, uncertain, exposed. Vanessa's tone never changed. She didn't shout. She didn't gloat. But her presence filled every inch of the marble floor. And though she never raised her voice, her words rang louder than any command that had ever been issued inside those walls. "You judged the wrong woman," she said, "and you did it in my house." The front doors of Apex Trust Bank opened without fanfare, but the room changed the moment 3 people stepped inside. Michael Torres, regional director of Apex's Florida branches, moved with quiet command. Beside him walked Lisa Chen and Robert Hayes, both members of the Apex Financial Group board. No one had to introduce them. They wore no name tags. They didn't need to. The staff instantly stiffened. Michael scanned the lobby. Jacob's live stream camera still pointed up from across the room. Customers standing in clusters. Maya Patel and Nina flanking Vanessa Harper at the center. His eyes met Vanessa's, and without hesitation, he walked straight to her and said, clearly and without ceremony, "Ms. Harper, CEO, we're here." Every face in the room turned toward Stephen Coleman, whose lips parted slightly, as if words were forming but refused to arrive. Rachel Kim took one step back. Bumping into her teller station, Brian Walsh's arms dropped to his sides. Derek Vaughn looked toward the exit, suddenly unsure where to stand. Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She turned to the staff, the same faces that had ridiculed, threatened, and dismissed her, and spoke just loud enough for every corner of the lobby to hear. "Effective immediately," she said. "This branch is shut down." A gasp rippled through the room. Stephen Coleman, Rachel Kim, Brian Walsh, Derek Vaughn. You are no longer employees of Apex Trust or Apex Financial Group. Your access has already been terminated. You are not permitted to return to this property. Stephen shook his head, stepping forward like a man still trying to reclaim his illusion of control. You can't do this in public. Vanessa didn't even look at him. This is exactly where it needs to be done. In front of the people you thought would stay quiet, Lisa Chen added, her voice crisp. Your names have been flagged in our system. Brian Walsh and Derek Vaughn. You are banned from rehire at any Apex-owned or affiliated institution. Permanently? Derek opened his mouth but said nothing. Brian looked like the color had drained from his face. Vanessa continued. Maya Patel is being promoted effective today. A formal offer will be sent by close of business. Maya blinked, stunned. I didn't ask for that. Vanessa gave a small nod. And that's exactly why you deserve it. Behind them. Customers had stopped whispering. Now they watched with focused stillness as the power dynamic reversed itself in real time. Your actions today, Vanessa said, eyes still locked on Stephen, have not only violated company policy, they have disgraced the mission of the bank I built from the ground up, Stephen muttered. You never gave us a chance to explain. You explained everything. Vanessa replied, the second I walked through that door. Michael Torres stepped forward now, facing the entire staff. The building will be locked down after this meeting. Clients will be redirected. Assets secured. There will be a full investigation into how this environment was allowed to fester. That was when Rachel, voice trembling, suddenly spoke. There's something I need to say. Vanessa's gaze turned toward her. Go on. Rachel swallowed hard. It wasn't just today. We've done this before. More than once. Stephen told us to. He said certain customers weren't worth onboarding. He said minorities often had documentation issues or would bring down the branch's numbers. The heir left the room. Robert Hayes, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. You're saying you deliberately rejected customers based on race or perceived background? Rachel nodded slowly. Eyes down. We didn't file complaints. We shredded them. We used code words. Like, review later, or not qualified, if they didn't look the part. We pushed them out. Vanessa stood still, her voice low but clear. Why admit it now? Because you were right. Rachel said, we assumed you were nobody. Because you didn't walk in dressed like someone we were trained to respect. The room held its breath. Sophia Bennett, standing among the other stunned customers, shook her head. How many people lost opportunities because of this? Rachel answered quietly. I don't know. A lot. Vanessa looked around the lobby, at the customers still standing guard, at Maya, who hadn't backed down, at Jacob still filming, and said, This isn't about me. It's about every person who walked in here hoping for dignity and left feeling humiliated. Then she addressed the crowd. We will be reaching out to all account holders at this location. Every past complaint will be reviewed. Any client denied service will be contacted directly. If harm was done, it will be corrected. Michael nodded in agreement. And a new oversight body is being created to monitor bias across all Apex locations. Vanessa turned back to the staff one last time. You weren't fired because I'm angry. You were fired because you failed the people you were paid to serve. Lisa stepped forward. We're concluding this branch's operations today. All clients will be contacted within 24 hours. Staff, please leave your badges and access cards at the front desk before exiting. Stephen's shoulders sagged as he placed his badge on the counter. Rachel followed. Slowly. Brian stood frozen for several seconds, then did the same. Derek hesitated the longest. Then, finally. He dropped his keycard and walked out without a word. The lobby stayed quiet. No applause, no cheers. Just the soft, clean silence that follows when something rotten is finally cut away. And standing at the center of it all, calm, composed, and unmoved, was the woman they'd tried to erase, now holding the future of the bank in her hands. Once the last of the dismissed staff had left the lobby, Vanessa Harper took a slow breath, her expression unreadable, her mind already shifting from exposure to action. She didn't come for revenge. She came to rebuild what others had quietly corrupted. Within minutes, Lisa Chen and Robert Hayes had set up a temporary operations table near the teller line. Now, dark and unmanned, Michael Torres, phone pressed to his ear, coordinated live with legal, HR, and Apex's internal ethics team. Elena Ortiz, still on standby remotely, confirmed the internal system override had been completed across all accounts linked to the branch. Vanessa stood at the center of it all, sleeves rolled, no press conference, just quiet decisions that would ripple through the entire company. "First," she said, turning to Lisa and Michael, "notify all department heads I want a full audit of client rejections from this branch for the past 24 months. Names, reasons, timestamps, already requested." Michael replied, "Legal's pulling the archived system logs as we speak." Vanessa nodded. "Any review later notations? Flag them. If any client was coded by appearance, dress, accent, or background, I want them personally contacted and offered a corrective package." She turned to Maya Patel, now standing behind her with a corporate iPad in hand. "You'll help oversee client outreach. New title Assistant VP, Equity Response Division, effective immediately." Maya blinked. "Are you sure?" Vanessa met her eyes. "You earned this because you did the one thing others didn't. You spoke when it mattered." Maya nodded slowly, still absorbing the shock. Behind them, the hum of phones, typing, and administrative cleanup filled the once hostile space with a new energy, urgent, focused, no longer poisonous. Customers who had remained to witness it all now stood watching, some in awe, others still in quiet disbelief. One woman whispered, "She didn't just fire them, she's building something better." And it was true. Vanessa wasn't just cleaning house, she was uprooting the system that had allowed rot to settle. Then, as she reviewed the incoming updates from HR, Michael stepped forward, face tense. "There's something else." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." He handed her a printed file, pulled moments earlier from internal complaints tracking. "It's not just this branch. Stephen's name shows up in 2 other incident logs. Tampa and Fort Lauderdale locations. Different dates, same patterns. Allegations of application shredding, profiling, verbal bias." Vanessa flipped through the first page. And none of this reached corporate. It was buried. Michael said, "All 3 filed under insufficient evidence by a regional HR manager who, until this morning, reported directly to Stephen." Lisa looked up from her laptop. "That position has been eliminated as of 10 minutes ago. New reporting line goes through ethics compliance." Vanessa stared down at the documents. He had help. This wasn't just arrogance. This was a network. She didn't raise her voice, but her tone cooled further. If there were others silencing complaints, "I want their names. We'll go branch by branch if we have to." Maya stepped forward. "There's a second training document I saw during onboarding. It wasn't official, just a note someone slipped under our desks." She unlocked her tablet and opened a scanned file. Grainy, but legible. It was titled, "Know Your Client Profile Priorities." It had a list of behaviors and appearance markers tied to undesirable account risks. Vanessa took the device, scrolled slowly, then looked up at Lisa. "This is discrimination dressed up as strategy." Lisa's jaw tightened. "We'll investigate its origin." "This was circulated unofficially," Maya said. "Whispers, slipped copies, but we all saw it. Vanessa didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, "Then this isn't just a branch failure. It's institutional." The word hung in the air like a weight. Robert Hayes finally spoke. "You're launching a company-wide audit." Then Vanessa nodded. "Every branch, every policy, every bias that's been hidden behind polite language and internal filters, it all comes down." She turned toward the stunned customers still gathered in the lobby. "I want every client who was wrong to know we didn't just listen. We acted." Jacob Reed, still holding his phone but no longer live streaming, said quietly, "People will remember this. Not just what happened, but how you answered it." Vanessa gave a faint nod. "Good. Let them remember. Because if we're going to build something worthy of trust, it has to start here, today, with all of us watching." In the hours that followed the branch shutdown, the story spread far beyond Brickell Avenue. It moved through internal reports, social circles, client group chats, and eventually headlines. But inside the bank, there was no celebration, just focused, quiet resolve. Vanessa Harper remained on site through the evening, overseeing the transition with the calm of someone who had weathered storms before. She made no dramatic exit, no speeches to camera. The reform wasn't for press. It was for every client who had been ignored, humiliated, or quietly turned away. Over the next week, Apex Financial launched a full-scale inquiry into all branch-level decisions related to client intake and service prioritization. A newly formed oversight committee, chaired by Lisa Chen and advised by external ethics consultants, began gathering data from whistleblowers across the network. Hundreds of former clients, now coming forward, shared stories that mirrored what Vanessa endured: denied appointments, delayed applications, mysteriously missing forms. And then came the final twist, one that stunned even the internal reform team. A retired regional manager, who had worked under Stephen Coleman nearly a decade ago, submitted a sworn affidavit stating that Apex's former Southeast HR lead, long since retired, had quietly instructed branch managers to protect the brand image by quietly diverting or discouraging clients who didn't reflect the target clientele. That policy, unofficial and deliberately undocumented, had been passed down verbally, distorted and adapted, and eventually weaponized into the behavior Vanessa encountered. It had never been written into company handbooks, never formally approved, but it had taken root nonetheless. The rot, Vanessa said after reading the affidavit, started years ago. Stephen didn't invent it. He just made it comfortable, with that final piece of the puzzle. Apex's board moved swiftly, not only reviewing hiring and training systems, but establishing a permanent equity task force with authority to audit any branch without notice. But reform wasn't just policy. It was personal. Vanessa issued personal letters to every client who had ever filed a discrimination complaint at Apex Trust Bank. She offered them a direct line of communication, financial repair plans, and the dignity they should have received in the first place. Those who had been dismissed without reason were formally apologized to. Some received financial restitution. Others, like the woman who'd been told to wear heels to get attention, received an unexpected phone call from Vanessa herself. She didn't delegate accountability. She faced it. Maya Patel, now officially Assistant Vice President of Equity Response, helped build the framework for internal bias training that was rolled out across all Florida branches within 30 days. She didn't forget the looks, the tension, or Stephen's threat, but she turned that fear into a structured policy that ensured no other employee would have to choose between silence and integrity. And as for Derek, Rachel, Brian, and Stephen, their termination files were shared with national regulatory agencies. Vanessa didn't pursue criminal charges, but their professional licenses and affiliations were flagged. When asked later why she didn't take it further, Vanessa replied, "Their reputations will answer for them." What matters is protecting the next client, not humiliating the last employee. 3 months later, on a warm October morning, Vanessa stood quietly inside a newly redesigned Apex branch just a few miles away from where the incident began. The new lobby was different. No marble thrones, no velvet ropes. It was open, inclusive, modern. Every wall held the same quote etched in brushed steel. Words chosen not for branding but for truth. Respect is the minimum balance. She stood beside Maya and Robert, watching clients come and go. There were no stares, no whispers, just the rhythm of a bank doing what it was meant to do. One woman paused at the quote, then looked back at Vanessa with quiet recognition. She didn't say a word. She simply smiled. And that, Vanessa thought, was enough. Because change didn't roar. It didn't always trend. Sometimes. Change looked like a woman walking into a bank and being treated like she belonged. As she stepped outside into the Miami sun, Vanessa Harper didn't feel victorious. She felt ready for whatever came next.